The big release today is Llama 3.1, and we're releasing three models. The first time we're releasing a 405 billion parameter model. So it's by far the most sophisticated open source model that I think anyone has put out. And it really kind of is competitive with some of the leading closed models, and in some areas is even ahead. So I'm really excited to see what people do with that, especially now that we're making it so that the community policies around Llama allow people to use it as a teacher model to distill and fine tune and basically create whatever other models they want with it. In addition to that, we've distilled the 405 billion parameter model down to make newer and updated and now leading for their size 70 billion and 8 billion parameter models. They also have really good performance, really good kind of cost per performance ratios. So I'm really excited to see what everyone does with this. Yeah, I mean, taking a step back, I think this is a pretty big moment for open source AI. Um, I've been reflecting on this, and I kind of think it's, I've thought for a while that open source AI was going to become the industry standard, and I thought that it would basically follow the path that Linux did, where if you just go back to before Linux was popular. There were all these companies that had their own closed versions of Unix, and at the time, there's nothing that was sort of that sophisticated that had ever been done as an open source project. And people thought, hey, no, this is like the closed model of development is the only way to do something that's this advanced. And at first, Linux kind of got its foothold because it was cheaper, because developers could customize it in different ways. And then over time, as the ecosystem built out, it got more scrutiny, so it actually became the more secure one. It became the more advanced one. There were more partners that basically had built more capabilities. In the case of Linux, more drivers and things like that. That basically ended up making it have more capabilities as well than any closed source Unix. So I think that this moment with Llama 3.1 is kind of like that inflection point where I think Llama has the opportunity to become the open source AI standard, for open source to become the standard, the industry standard for AI. And even in the places where it's not yet ahead on performance, it leads on kind of cost and on customizability and on the ability to take the model and fine tune it and do all the things that you want with it. So I think that those are just huge advantages that we're going to see developers take, and we're focusing on building out this partner ecosystem, and there are going to be all these different capabilities that get built out around it. So yeah, really excited to talk about all that. The thing that I'm most excited about is seeing people use it to distill and fine tune their own models. Right? I mean, like you're saying, I mean, this is the first open source frontier level model, but it's not the first frontier level model. So there have been other models that sort of have that capacity. And yeah, people are going to want to do inference directly on the 405 because it's, by our estimates, it's going to be about 50% cheaper, I think, than GPT 4.0 to do that directly. And so I think that obviously makes a difference to a lot of people. But the thing that I think is really new in the world with this is because it's open weights, um, the ability to take the model and distill it down to whatever size that you want, to use it for synthetic data generation, to use it as a teacher model. So our vision for the future, it's not just, okay, it was never that there's going to be one singular thing. I think this is like OpenAI sort of has this vision that they're going to build kind of one big AI. Anthropic does too. Google does too. It's never been our vision. Our vision is that there should be lots of different models. I think every startup out there, every enterprise, governments, they all kind of want to have their own custom models. And yeah, when the closed ecosystem was so much better than open source, it was just better to take the vanilla closed thing off the shelf, because even though you could customize open source, there was still some gap between the performance that you could get. But now we don't see that anymore. Right now, as open source basically closes the gap, I think you're just going to see this wide proliferation of models where people now have the incentive to basically customize and build and train exactly the right size model for what they're doing, train their data into it. They're going to have the tools to do it because of a lot of the partner integrations that the companies like Amazon are doing with AWS or Databricks, or different folks like that who are building these whole suites of services for distilling and fine tuning open models. So I think that that's going to be the thing that's new here, and that's really exciting. Is how far can that get pushed? And that's a completely new capability in the world because there hasn't been an open source or open weight model of kind of this sophistication that's ever been released before. Before Llama 3.1, our approach, I mean, the reason that Meta fundamentally is investing in this is we basically want to know that we have access to a leading model, because of some of our history of kind of how mobile worked and things like that. We didn't want to be in a position where we had to rely on some competitor for this kind of fundamental technology. So we built it for ourselves. And before Llama 3.1, we kind of had this instinct that if we made it open source, there would be a community that would grow around it, and that would actually extend the capabilities and make it more valuable for everyone, including us. Um, because at the end of the day, this isn't just a technology; it's an ecosystem, right? That you're developing. So, in order for this to end up being a useful thing for us, there also needs to be a broad ecosystem. One of the big changes that I think we see with Llama 3.1 is instead of just building it for ourselves and throwing it over the wall and letting developers use it, this time we're really taking a much more proactive stance on building partnerships and making sure that there's this whole ecosystem of companies that can do interesting things with the model and can serve developers in ways that we're not going to. Right? We're not a public cloud provider, right? I mean, we're not AWS or Google or Azure, right? So developers aren't going to come to us to build their stuff, but we want to make sure that all those public clouds are well equipped to do this. That goes for some of the more basic functionality, like just hosting the models and serving inference. But we also want to make it so that some of the new stuff that's going to be possible with this, like distillation and fine tuning, that there's specific services that are set up for that. And a lot of those services haven't been that well built out before because that's not really a thing that you could do as well with closed models. So there was specific work that we had to do with those partners to enable that. At the same time, I think that there are also going to be folks like Grok, right, who are doing really interesting work on really kind of ultra low latency inference, and I'm really excited to get this in their hands. And they're building something for launch that basically is gonna enable that too. And then there's this whole set of enterprise companies. So folks like Dell or Scale.ai or Deloitte or Accenture who work with all the enterprises around the world on technology deployments. And I think those are going to be a lot of the folks who help build kind of custom models for whether they're large enterprises or governments. A lot of folks who basically want to have a model that's their model that they can train their custom data into it, but they a lot of companies don't want to send their data over an API to Google or OpenAI. It's and not because those companies have any particular privacy issue, but it's the same reason why people like encryption in WhatsApp, right? People just want kind of secure by design architectures where their data can kind of stay with them. And I think that there's going to be a whole market around things like that get built out too. So I'm pretty excited about all of this. But yeah, we're taking a much more proactive position this time in helping to build out the ecosystem because I think that that's how this grows and just becomes more valuable for everyone.
Follow to learn more.